The New York Giants and Detroit Lions kick off their respective preseason opener on Friday after two joint practices. Who are some of the Giant players that the Lions might have their eye on? And who are some of the Lions players that the Giants might have their eye on? Locked On Lions host Matt Dery and I break it all down for you coming up next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and hello, Detroit Lion fans, and welcome to a special crossover edition of Locked On Giants and Locked On Lions. You got Patricia, Traina, your host of Locked On Giants, Matt Dery, your host of Locked On Lions. And folks, we didn't have to do a crossover, but we said, why not? There's preseason football coming up, and we are going to talk about some of the players, and plus the Lions and the Giants have been practicing the last couple of days out in Allen Park, Michigan. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and just kind of get you ready for the next closest thing to real football. Even though it's exhibition, it's getting close to real football. And I know I'm excited. Matt is excited. And we're excited to have you with us. Today's special crossover episode of Locked On Giants and Locked On Lions is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Go ahead and post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Again, that's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Matt, how excited are you that we're finally getting real football?
Patricia, it's been great this week. Certainly getting another team in the mix here, your team, the Giants, into, like you said, the Allen Park facility, and as I like to call it, 222 Rodwood Drive down there. The Lions really dominate Tuesday, and then the Giants come back with Danny Dimes on Wednesday and really kind of pulverize the Lions defense. So it's a good showing. It's a good opportunity to see where you are, because a lot of the regulars, at least for the Lions, probably I don't think will play much, if at all, on Friday night.
Yeah, and it's the same thing for the Giants. I'm not anticipating that the starters will play. We'll probably see more rookies, about a dozen or so rookies. But, Matt, I want to talk about some of the players, and we'll start with the Lions, because these two teams obviously having a chance up close and personal to look at each other. The Lions are going to make some cuts, when final cut down date. Who might be some of the guys that you think are going to become available that the Giants maybe are keeping an eye on or would fit the Giants?
Well, let's start here. This morning, or at least on Thursday morning, the Lions are letting Logan Stenberg go. Now, this was a guy that was a mid-round offensive lineman draft pick from the previous regime in Bob Quinn, who is somebody that when the Lions got him, they said he's a little bit raw, but he's real dirty and nasty, and he's going to be a part of the offensive line probably for years to come once he develops. It never happened. Quinn was fired. Brad Holmes came in, and to Brad's credit, he didn't just broom out every Bob Quinn draft pick. He's kept some players around. But now with Teddy Bridgewater coming aboard, the Lions had to make a roster cut. And Logan Stenberg, who's still young, still maybe could latch on somewhere else as a backup offensive lineman, is available. So that's a guy to keep in mind. I don't know what the Giant situation is. We're going to talk about this because I have somebody on the in mind for the Lions that you guys might let go. Another name to watch is Julian Okwara, Romeo's brother, or the Lions got Romeo from the Giants years ago. But this is a guy that kind of is caught in a numbers game. Another Bob Quinn draft pick from that last draft. There's only two left now from Quinn's last draft before Holmes took over. Jonah Jackson, who's a stud left guard, and Julian Okwara, who's a defensive end, hybrid linebacker, pass rusher. I think there's a good chance the Lions let him go. It's a numbers game. You can't have too many edges and linebackers on the field at one time. There's guys way ahead of him right now, and I think his roster spot is in trouble. This is a kid out of Notre Dame, third-round pick years ago, that I think somebody will pick up.
And Okwara, of course, playing a position that, in my opinion, at any rate, the Giants could definitely use some help with. They've got basically the same cast of characters as they did last year at outside linebacker. And I've always been saying, since basically the spring, that I'm concerned about the depth behind starters Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari. So that would certainly be a guy to keep an eye on. And Matt, the two teams, like I said, they scrimmaged this week against each other. They practiced against each other. From your perspective, what did you see from the Giants that, maybe is different? Because these two teams did meet last year. How different do they look based on what you saw?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. It is just practice. Okay, they're not going after the quarterback. They are trying to rush and get to him, but they can't touch him. So there's things that come into play. But the one thing that I saw, at least, in talking to some people about Wednesday's practice, was the improvement of Daniel Jones, at least throwing the football. We knew last year when these two teams played, and I was a little bit surprised. I knew the Lions would win one of those two games in New Jersey, whether it was the Jets or Giants. They played them both. I didn't think the Lions would win both, and they did. But I was surprised at how physical the Lions were with the Giants and how much they pushed them around that day. You knew that was not going to happen again Tuesday and Wednesday, both days. I thought, like I said, Jones on Wednesday did his thing. He had open receivers that he missed on Tuesday, but on Wednesday he was better. And I thought Penei Sewell, to be quite honest with you, did a great job against Kayvon Thibodeau. Lions could have taken Thibodeau. Instead, they took Aiden Hutchinson, and I think they're happy with where they are. What about you? I know. Were you concerned about Tuesday's showing, and are you feeling better about Wednesday's showing?
Truth be told, I wasn't concerned about Tuesday's showing because, look, everybody has a bad day at the office.
Yeah.
And the Giants had been looking really good in the first 10 practices of the summer. And even going back to OTAs, they'd been looking a lot different, year two of the system across the board. And, when I heard about the bad practice, I thought, okay, you know what? Everybody has a bad day at the office. And look, it's an opportunity for the coaches to teach. Because if you're not making mistakes, what are you doing? What are you going to correct? You can't be perfect all the time. So no, me personally, I was not, concerned about it. I know some of my listeners
you weren't overreacting like the rest of the New York
of my
media?
listeners were, and some of the, I had a couple of Lions fans come on the channel and say, "Ha ha, we owned your butt,"
Yeah.
So, but it's like, look, it's just practice and everything like that, and it was a good opportunity. Dan Campbell, the head coach, and Brian Dable, the Giants head coach, they were on the Miami staff together.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, and maybe a lot of your listeners know, Dan Campbell actually started out with the Giants as a tight end way back in the day. I covered him back in the day. He wasn't quite as animated as he is today. He was kind of quiet into himself back then, but he's a great guy. I mean, I was just surprised that he actually remembered me when I reached out to him, and he goes, "Yeah, of course I remember you." So just a really super guy.
And here's the other thing too, Patricia, about these practices. What was interesting is, the Peter Kings of the world, Mike Tirico, Jake Glazer, Andrew Siciliano. There were big names and a lot of national people at the practices. And the Lions have not in years had this much of a national following. Peter Schrager is going to be hosting a DetroitLions.com special broadcast of Friday's game on the Lions website. So if the Giant fans want a different kind of feel, it's just the buzz and what's going on in Allen Park right now is beyond words. So a lot of eyes were on these 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday.
Well, that's great. I mean, the Lions have been downtrodden for a number of years. The Giant fans can probably relate to that too, for the last 10 years. So it's nice to see both teams on the rise, definitely, moving forward. Even though, again, this is just preseason, but there's a lot of buzz around the Giants. There's a lot of buzz around the line. All right. Coming up next, we are going to flip the script. I'm going to give Matt some Giant players that maybe will become available that they want to keep an eye on. And then we will just spin ahead in the third segment to the preseason game, what to watch, what we're going to be watching. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back. All right, we have more coming up for you on this special crossover edition of the Locked On Giants and Locked On Lions podcast. But first, these days, every new potential hire can feel like high-stakes wagers for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, right? So that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. I myself have used LinkedIn Jobs to find aspiring writers for Giants Country, the site I run over on SI's Fan Nation, And the process is not only super easy, but a big time saver. Simply add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize whom you'd like to interview and hire. So don't spend time sorting through endless resumes and dead end leads. Put LinkedIn jobs to work to you today for free by visiting linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that link is linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. All right, everybody, welcome back to the crossover edition, Locked On Giants, Locked On Lions. I'm Patricia Traina, the host of Locked On Giants. He is Matt Dery, host of Locked On Lions. We're glad to have you in with us. And a special shout out to all our everydayers.
Yes.
And of course, to our newcomers. We all are always getting newcomers in here and everybody in between. We appreciate you for tuning in and supporting the Locked On Giants and Locked On Lions podcast. And Matt, you're on deck. Who do you want to know about on the Giants for the Lions?
Let's start here, Patricia, because I think I mentioned before about Stenberg. So the Lions' depth on the offensive line, while their starters are fantastic and their sixth man, I guess you could say, if you want to use a basketball term, and Graham Glasgow, they're very comfortable with. They're looking around. I was going to ask you about Matt Peart, if I'm pronouncing that properly. A guy that I know was a third round pick years ago, kind of on the bubble. What's the story? And
Yeah,
the
Matt
Lions
Peart.
looking at him.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So the story with Matt Peart is he was drafted by the previous regime, the Dave Gettleman regime, out of UConn. They were eyeing him to be the starting right tackle. And then, slow development. And then he got injured and they decided to just kind of move on. So now the best that he can hope for is the swing tackle position. But the problem that he's facing is that the Giants have a guy by the name of Tyree Phillips on the roster who can not only play tackle, but can play guard. So if you've got a guy who could play two positions versus one that could play one, that's not in your favor necessarily. So Matt Peart, interestingly enough, will probably get the start at right tackle because Evan Neal, he's in the concussion protocol. Not that he would have played anyway, because I don't think Dable is going to be playing any of the starters, but he's a guy, that will probably get a lot of snaps that I'm sure the Lions will be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I think Detroit is searching for some backup O-linemen. I don't think they're comfortable with what they have. A guy like Matt Nelson that they've had the last couple of years is fine, but they just brought in some others recently to give them a shot. But that's one that's interesting. Who else is on the bubble, you think, that maybe we could pounce on?
You need cornerbacks?
Well, not Amani Oruwariye.
No, I don't. I mean, he might make it. I mean, I don't know, but there's a couple guys that maybe might be on the bubble. One would be Rodarius Williams. He's a guy who was, I believe he was either a 6th or 7th round draft pick a few years ago. Kind of fell out of favor towards the end of last year with this coaching staff after that Dallas Thanksgiving game. And wasn't really heard from again. I was surprised, quite honestly, that he made it to training camp. So he's a guy that maybe is going to be, on the bubble or is on the bubble. Another guy, and some of my listeners are going to just, say, why do you keep picking on this guy? But it's nothing personal. And that's Darnay Holmes, our slot cornerback.
Yeah.
Darnay Holmes has a nearly $3 million cap hit. And just watching the Giants in practice, it seems to me that they're going to gravitate more towards a committee approach at that slot cornerback position. They have guys that can do it. So, Holmes is not a bad player. The problem with him last year is that he was a little too handsy, and I think he led the Giants in penalties. So he's a guy that, he's a fighter. He's scrappy, but I question whether he's going to make it, make the final cut.
What's the status of Khalil Pimpleton, our buddy from here in Michigan?
Yeah.
Central Michigan guy. Lions liked him last year, didn't make it. What's his status?
I think he's on the bubble too. The Giants have a gazillion receivers, different skill sets, different backgrounds. interestingly enough, I think it was this past week, General Manager Joe Shane said that Wandale Robinson, who has been on PUP, could be activated within the next week and a half. So now all of a sudden, you've got a logjam at receiver, and the Giants receivers, the slots are filling up. So there might not be room for Khalil Pimpleton. I think the biggest problem with him, from what I've seen, is that, he's an excellent return man, and I'd love to see him get a chance at returner. But as a receiver, doesn't really give you a whole lot because he's inconsistent with his hands. So, I don't think he's going to make this roster.
It's interesting. The Lions, I mean, depth is an issue now at wide receiver, but Jameson Williams will be back in week 7. So he's out there practicing now. It's just a suspension that obviously is going to start week 1. Jahmyr Gibbs has been playing both at running back and at receiver. And this kid, Dylan Drummond from Eastern Michigan, is coming on. So it went from a couple of weeks ago going, Tom Kennedy got hurt. Trinity Benson got hurt. They probably need to add another receiver. They go get Denzel Mims from the Jets, who and now even if Pimpleton became available, I don't know if the Lions would reconsider picking him up unless it was some sort of injury. But again, we got 3 preseason games to play. It's a long way to go, but some interesting names that you threw out there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then I'm just trying to think who else, defensive line, the Giants are a little thin on because of injuries. So I don't know if the Lions have anybody that, they might be looking to move on from there. We do have your former, I think he was a former pick, Ashawn Robinson, I think got his start there.
Yeah.
So, but he's been, banged up. He got it. I mean, lately he's been practicing, but he started off, with an injury. And then I'm just trying to think who else. I mean, running back, we might have an extra running back, but I think the Lions are pretty set there.
Yeah.
Tight ends, we may have extra tight ends but I believe you guys are set it there as well, right?
Well, I mean, I think right now, Sam Laporte is really coming on. It's obviously a 2nd-round pick that's going to play a ton and probably start. I mentioned on Wednesday's show, he's just been tremendous so far, and Brock Wright's coming back. But I still think they would like to add a 4th one, have somebody, whether it's practice squad or whatever, after the injury to Shane Zylstra. So it's a possibility. Logjam there. You got a couple of really good ones right now.
Yeah, we've got Waller and we've got Bellinger. And I think Lawrence Cager is going to probably be that 3rd guy. That would leave guys like Chris Myrick, Tommy Sweeney, who's purely a blocker. They got a kid by the name of Ryan Jones. So maybe there's somebody there to be had, depending on what it is the Lions want in their tight end.
Yeah. Well, as you know, with Dan Campbell, I think they want to carry as a former tight end 4 in some capacity, whether it's 3 on the active roster or a 4th with practice squad. Jason Cabindle, a fullback they love, could play there if they needed an emergency. But those are some good names. I think these two teams, Patricia, really kind of play similar styles. They both want to kind of smash you and throw double tight ends in there on occasion. So I thought that was a good matchup for preseason and, joint practices to get these two teams together for sure.
Yes, definitely. All right. Now, coming up next, we're going to give you guys and gals what we'll be watching on Friday night when the Lions host the New York Giants. Don't go anywhere. Giant fans, Lion fans, you got Patricia Traina and Matt Dery. We are doing a special crossover show talking about the Giants and Lions who just finished 2 days of joint practices. They face each other Friday night in Detroit. And Matt, what are some of the things you are going to be looking for? Obviously no game planning, going to be very vanilla, but what are some of the things you are most interested to see, whether it be a position battle or maybe a change or something of that effect?
Well, like I said, I think this is the best roster they've had in years. And I think that they're going to be very, very safe with most of their regulars. Frank Ragnow, their starting center, has been gone for a while now. You're not going to play any guys that are, I think, big names at all. The one big name I think you will see is Jameson Williams, based on the fact that, again, he's going to miss the first 6 weeks due to the gambling suspension. And I would anticipate, Patricia, that he's the showcase. He's the showpiece for these preseason games, at least the first couple. So I'm looking for Jameson Williams to play really, really well, especially if the Giants don't play some of their regulars. And it'd be kind of ironic to have Jamo going up against Oruwariye, who of course had such a bad year with the Lions last year. So that's something to watch. And two other names I'll give you. The Starling Thomas, Stephen Gilmore battle for one of the last cornerback spots has been very entertaining and intriguing throughout training camp. Thomas, undrafted rookie, same with Gilmore, but Starling Thomas has been a guy that's really come on. So I'll be very interested in seeing how that goes and how he plays, because he's fighting for a roster spot. 7th round pick Chase Lucas from a couple of years ago could be somebody available, because if Thomas and Gilmore are better, Brad Holmes is going to go with the better guy. So that's something to keep an eye on. Nate Sudfeld, backup quarterback spot. Teddy Bridgewater is coming in next week to basically take Sudfeld's job. He's going to play a ton. And if he's god awful, it will just kind of cement the fact that Bridgewater's there and Sudfeld will be the number 3. So I'll be interested in seeing how he does. How about you? What are you looking for with the Giants?
Oh gosh, where do I start? I mean, obviously the Giants, I would have liked to have seen the starting offensive line, but I don't think they're going to play like I said. So the depth, because they do need to sort that out. Like I said, is it going to be Matt Dery over Tyree Phillips or vice versa? What are they going to do for backup center? Is that going to be Ben Bredesen, or is it, going to be, Shane Lemieux? So you've got some battles going on there. But the other things that I'm looking at, particularly, who's going to be the punt returner? The Giants haven't had any kind of stability at punt returner in quite some time. They're going to try Eric Gray, their rookie running back, at that position. So he's going to get a crack at that. Kickoff returner, I think he's going to get a crack at that as well. But, with this new kickoff rule, it's like, who cares at this point? I'm also curious to see the depth at outside linebacker. As I mentioned, it's Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari, and basically, okay, who's behind them? You've got Jihad Ward, who's a veteran. He's going to be on this team as long as Wink Martindale is on the, is the defensive coordinator. But what about the young guys behind them? Can they, step up? And they have some intriguing guys there. But inside linebackers, another position where I think they're going to get a good test, especially if Gibbs plays in this game, because, it's going to be Bobby Okereke as their starter. I don't think Bobby's going to play in Friday night's game. But who of Darian Beavers and Micah McFadden, who are the two main competitors for that ILB2 position, which one of them is going to step up and get that job? So that's going to be curious, interesting to see. Depth at cornerback, we'll see how that plays out. I mean, I have a rough idea, and I feel better about the depth at cornerback than I did at the start of camp. And then, the only other position maybe, is wide receiver, how the bottom of that depth chart is going to play out. But again, with these guys coming back off a PUP, there may not be a whole lot of room for additional guys to make the roster. I mean, you've got Hodgins, you've got Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Jalen Hyatt is 4. Sterling Shepard will probably make the roster. He would be 5. If Wan'Dale Robinson comes back, he would be 6. So if you're keeping 7 receivers, who's going to be the 7th? Is it going to be a guy like Colin Johnson, who I would love to see get a spot on the roster, but I don't know if they're going to be able to fit him. So those are some of the battles I'm looking forward to seeing. And above all, please, no injuries.
Exactly. The Lions got a scare with CJ Gardner-Johnson, like second day of training camp, where he has planted his leg, and luckily it was very minor. So I'm with you on that. I love the name you mentioned, Micah McFadden. I was a big fan of his at Indiana, and hope he gets some more opportunities with the Giants for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to resolve that second position right now. It's McFadden versus Beavers. Beavers was on his way to winning that job, I think, last year, and then he tore his ACL. So, the two of them competing. I think Beavers probably has a slight advantage over McFadden. He's a little bit more, athletic, but we'll see how it plays out, because there's a lot of preseason to go. And on that note, Matt, I'm excited. We get things started on Friday with the games. I want to thank you for coming on, and this was fun. Always a pleasure to catch up.
Always great to talk to you as well, Patricia. I know you and I talked last year. We were both a little bit surprised at how well the Lions dominated the Giants. Obviously, this game does not count. Like you said, no injuries, and we'll see how this thing goes, and hopefully everybody comes out unscathed on the health front. And these are going to be two teams that are obviously fighting for the playoffs. Lions feel like they're going to win the North, and I know the Giants feel like building off of what they did last year. They had a great year last year. That was impressive what Brian Daboll did.
Yeah, it was surprising, and now it's like, okay, what do they do for an encore? And we're going to find out. The Giants open their regular season September 10th against the Cowboys, Sunday Night Football. So, and the Lions, I believe, had the Chiefs, if I'm not mistaken,
That's
right?
correct. Thursday Night Football.
Thursday
You'll be
Night
watching.
Football. So, two
front of
primetime
everybody.
spots for these two upstart teams, and it should be a lot of fun. All right, Giant fans, Lion fans, that's going to do it for this special crossover edition of Locked On Giants, Locked On Lions. We appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget, you can find us Monday through Friday on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out. Again, I'm Patricia Traina, host of Locked On Giants. He is Matt Dery, host of Locked On Lions. We appreciate you, everybody, and we will see you again soon.